Welcome to the journey within you. And today I am just kind of excited to have Erin Celine with us. Let me just tell you how I found this young lady. We were traveling down a highway, don't remember which one, but as we travel in an RV, I saw this truck go by with pulling an RV, and I was like, I saw this thing on the back and it said the Joy Pack Journey. And I was like, what? I just connected immediately because journey for one, and joy. I love the word joy because you have to be joyful if you're doing, especially what you're doing, right? So I thought I got to connect, and she had her Instagram connection on there, and so immediately I sent her a message, and I was like, "Well, I didn't know who I was going to get, a he, she, what, you know." It's like who's going to answer? But she said, I asked her, I was like, would you be on my podcast and tell me your story? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, super cool. So Erin, tell us your story and how you got from where you came from to where you are today.
Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me on here. This is kind of fun. I've
Yeah.
never done a podcast before, but I've listened to a lot.
Yeah.
We are originally from Minnesota, just giving you all a little background. And we really felt that we were supposed to pick up and move to Florida. We sold our tiny little goat farm that we had been running for 7 years and just moved everybody. One of the perks of the last couple of years is that jobs have been able to go remote. And so my husband was able to pick up everything and move. So journey our journeys all begin at birth, right? We're
Yeah.
born and we're formed in our personality by how we're parented and how we grow up. It's just kind
Right.
of that soaking season, right, where you learn and you
Mhm.
grow. But my journey really feels like it began when I realized that I had been dealing with passive verbal abuse from a community
Mm,
member,
mm,
and I got to the point where I really just couldn't function anymore as a parent. I was able to just go through the steps, but I was
mm.
not healthy anymore.
Right.
And so I decided to find a therapist and get myself into some counseling.
Yeah. And that's a good
um,
step.
yeah, it was actually just such a godsend. It was the best thing I probably ever could have done. Um, and there were several people, without telling me, just praying behind the scenes, just, okay, this girl
Oh.
needs to get herself into some counseling.
Oh.
So that's really where my story begins. And yeah, so I started seeing this therapist, and we had been meeting sometimes twice a week, sometimes once
Mm,
a week, just depending on what I needed. And we dealt with the abusive stuff really within the first month, probably,
yeah.
of the counseling. And then after that, it was more just peeling back layer upon layer upon layer of just stuff that accumulates in your
Yeah.
life.
And we
You
pack
know,
it down, don't we? We pack
oh,
it
so
down in,
much.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like peeling back onion layers, or people talk about, just digging past another layer of soil.
Hmm.
There's all sorts of analogies, right?
Hmm. Right. Right. Yeah.
um, so I did that. I spent 8 years just digging
Wow.
and digging and digging, and um, that time in our life also was rough because we were transitioning around jobs, and I was unemployed for a section of that time, and
Mm.
so we had some like financial issues too, which was great actually, because at the end of the day, I really felt like all that was used to just bring me to a place of being willing to
Mm.
peel back those
Mm.
layers. We had our goats at the time, and I would go out into the goat pen to take care of the goats.
Mm. Yeah.
And I would end up just sitting with them for hours,
Isn't
after
it
the kids had
amazing?
gone to bed.
Yeah. I had the farm. I know. I know what it's like.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was just such a gift. There were so many
Mm.
little gifts throughout that whole season. Um, and so the process of the counseling really, really peeled off all these extra pieces of what I call coping, right? You don't know that
Right.
you're coping, but
Right.
you are.
Right.
And as I peeled those off, I really found who I was, my identity, who God created me to be, and
Hmm.
I was able to walk in that differently.
Yeah.
And my friends
Beautiful.
even said they would tell me to my face,
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
They would tell me to my face, wow, you were a terrible person before, but you're so different now.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, I recognized it too. So I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's amazing, isn't it? It was
Uh-huh.
just such a amazing several years. And I think about it in the analogy of we walk through life and we're walking down a dirt road and we pick up rocks. You know, oh, that one's
Mm.
cool, or oh, that one's in my
Mhm.
shoe, or oh, that one's in my way. And we just kind of unknowingly put them in our pocket.
Oh, that's a
And
good way to think about that.
and we just kind of keep walking. And all of a sudden, we stop one day and realize, oh my gosh, all of my pockets are full. What am
Right.
I going to do?
So heavy.
And yeah, so heavy. And you just can't
Mhm.
keep walking. And
Mm.
so eventually you start sifting. You know, you think about it like, oh, I need to put that rock down. I don't really want that one anymore. And
Yeah.
they're little,
Yeah.
sometimes trivial, sometimes they're the beautiful ones, and we
Mm.
don't realize they're the beautiful ones.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was just a process of unpacking rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
um, Yeah, so that led us to um, probably 2019.
Mm.
Um, and I was working in the hospital. I'm a nurse by trade.
Oh, thank you.
And I was working in the hospital when, oh, you're welcome, when COVID hit. And that was its own bit of awful
Yeah.
and its own bit of blessing. Through those couple years of dealing with COVID and all of the things that surrounded it, I was able to use the tools that I had gained through counseling to make it through without bitterness.
Mm.
And
Mm.
um, and you know, I didn't do it perfectly. Obviously, I had
No.
my days
No.
where it was
But it
hard.
yeah. Yeah, I think we all did. Yeah.
Yeah, um, and you know, my husband then was able to stay home and work from home, and so we were able to talk a lot more about our dreams and our hopes
Mm.
for our life,
Mm.
and all of that just kind of came to a head in 2021, and the market value went up on our house, and we realized we can sell.
Mm.
We should sell our house. We can go live on the road full time traveling.
Mhm.
Um, and if we do all of those things, it's completely feasible for me to quit my job
Mm.
for a time, for a season. And I think after everything from those few years, I really needed that.
Yeah.
And I can't blame anybody else who needs that too. It was rough.
Yeah. 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 Camper sales were up, during that time because people needed an
Yes.
out.
Yes,
Yeah.
so many people needed an out. And
Mhm.
our heart really became probably in like May of 2021, our heart really became to find somewhere close to the beach,
Mhm.
close to the
Mhm.
ocean, and provide a space for other people to get away and just feel some
Aw.
relief.
Mm.
And so we started to pursue Florida, and the doors just opened faster than we could walk through them.
Wow.
It was wild. There were so many doors that, if I think back, um, I don't know even how they came about.
Hey,
And
explain it. Yeah.
I just have to assume it was God's hand.
God thing.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, such a God thing. Like one example, um, we weren't initially planning to go to an RV. We were hoping to go to a boat.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like,
Yes,
what?
yes.
Live on
We
the water?"
had Yeah, we had our eyes set on a catamaran, a 4-bedroom catamaran down in
Oh,
Fort Lauderdale.
man.
And we had a couple of sailboats in our possession to try out sailing and to figure it out, but they needed some love, and we just didn't have the time to give them that
Yeah.
love. So we eventually parted ways with those. Um, and so we did. We said, okay, well, We had Florida in our sights, and then a catamaran opened up, and then a friend called me, and she said, Erin, are you still thinking of Florida? And I said, oh yeah, we really are. And she goes,
Mhm.
well, I just talked with a man who did the videography for our house, so we could put it up on an Airbnb. And he's selling a house and asked us if we wanted another one, and we said no, thank you, but we know someone who might.
Yeah.
And that was a time in Florida when there was at least 10 buyers for every house before it
Yes.
even came on the market.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, well, we'd like to look at it. And she said, oh, great, I'll talk to him. Great. So she talked to him and she said, okay, he's willing to keep his house off the market until you look at it and
Oh,
decide if you want it or not.
how cool.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so we sort of felt that that was an open door just to get ourselves to Florida.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I asked my husband, I said, do you think we should go? He said, yeah, absolutely. We should look at this house. And I said, do you think we should take our kids with us? Or should, grandma and grandpa
Mm.
spend a weekend with the kids? And he said,
Yeah.
no, if we're moving our whole life, they need to come see this too. And they
Wow.
need to be a part of it. And I said, okay, I'll look for tickets. I found tickets for $60
Oh
round
my
trip
gosh.
from
That's
Minnesota to
crazy.
Florida. Yeah,
That
it's
is
just
crazy.
like a confirmation.
You won't find that now.
No, no,
Mm-mm.
not anywhere.
No.
So we all bundled ourselves into a plane and headed to Florida and looked at this house. And it was a house like any other. It was great. It was a
Yeah.
great deal. But we decided, no, thank you. We didn't really want that because we really did have our eyes set on a boat. So we decided to drive across the state and go look at this boat. So we do, and the kids, we didn't, the kids had kind of been like on and off, like, yeah, I'd love to live in a boat. No, no, I'm never setting foot
Yeah.
on a boat.
Yeah.
Kids.
Yeah.
And so we get on this boat, we get over to it, and the kids just come alive, like
Mm.
just alive. And
Mm.
we need to be on this boat, Mom. This is going to be my room, and I'm going to sit here, and this is how we're going to do things,
Oh,
and I'm all about it. And
dreaming.
yeah, and so we decided, okay, let's look into it further. So my husband started to put together an offer for the boat and started to look at, getting sea trials done and all those different things that you need to
Yeah.
get before you purchase the boat. And one thing led to another, and then it just kind of fell through,
Mm.
which is fine. We
Mhm.
weren't. We sort of hold things loosely, and we went, okay, that
Right.
just might be our
Right.
assignment. That's not the boat for us. And so I ended up then thinking, well, how do we get from a house to a boat? We need
Yeah.
to sell the house. How is this going to work? Logistically, the wheels in my brain just started going.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, I know some people live in RVs full time. Maybe I should
Look into
reach out to a
that.
friend. Yeah. So I have a friend. She and I had homeschooled our kids together
Oh.
just briefly, but in Minnesota. And I had heard she did this wild thing where she just sold her house and got into an RV and hasn't come back yet.
Oh, wow.
So so I reached out to her and I said, hey, do you think it'd be possible for us to do that? And she says, oh, yes, of course it would. This would be great. And I said, can you point me in the direction of some resources? I know you've been doing this for a while. And so she points out this group. It's called Full Time Families, and a
Oh,
shameless plug. We really love the group.
yeah.
and
That's so
and
cool.
she goes, you might want to just check this out on online and on Facebook. And some people are part of it, some people aren't. It's really no big deal,
Mhm.
whatever. So we go, okay, yeah, we'll join it. It's a great idea. It's great community, and
Aw.
I find out later she owns it. She owns
Ah,
that business.
so it's all her thing. Yeah.
It is, and she's a succession of owners, but they're in charge of it right now, and
Right.
it just cracked me up that she was like, "No big deal. Some people do it, some people don't." I'm like, "Oh, you're running the thing, aren't you?"
Uh-huh. Small
So I thought
plug.
that was, yeah, exactly. It was really great. So I began looking into everything more, and then talked to my husband and said, "What do you think?" And he goes, I just really think that we should look into RVs then. That sounds like a great idea. So he starts combing Facebook Marketplace and we find an RV, and through a series of little miracles, we eventually end up getting this RV for probably half the cost that we
Mhm.
would have ever paid.
Yep.
Um, we happen to already have the truck available to pull it. And that's a story in itself. All of these little pieces
Mhm.
came together for us to be able to launch in November of 2021.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it
So
was great. And through the process, I just kept praying and thinking. And I was like, well, if we launch, maybe we should have a website.
mhm.
And if we launch, well, maybe we should have a place for other people to come join us. And
Mhm.
if we launch, well, maybe we should share our story. And
Mhm.
so I kept thinking, like, what should we call it? What should we call our story?
Mhm.
And it just came to mind, the joy packed journey, because you need to have joy as
Yes.
you walk through life. And each part of
Yes.
life has its own little pockets of joy, and those are really sustaining.
Mhm.
And if you're not looking for them, things can be kind of miserable.
Yeah, yeah. I don't wanna live a miserable life. You know, it's
No.
not saying that we don't have hard days. It's that we
Right.
find the joy through it all, through
Yeah.
everything that we go through. And so you got the RV. What was your first destination?
Our first destination, so we actually literally pounded the last nail in the house. I'm not even kidding you. Dropped the keys off with my parents, the title for the house or the documents, whatever,
Right, right.
and said, "Take it to the realtor. We'll see you later." We
Wow.
pulled out at 11:59 on October 30th, um,
Dang.
and we said, "See you later." And we arrived in some place in Iowa and spent the night in a parking
Aw.
lot.
In a parking lot, yeah.
And
That's
then
done a lot of that.
yeah, and then we ended up heading down to one of my husband's brothers
Yeah,
places in the Midwest,
neat.
and we stayed there for 2 weeks and just kind of got our bearings and took a deep breath from everything that we had been
Mhm,
doing, and
mhm,
then from there we hit a couple of locations heading south. There's something out there called Harvest Hosts,
mhm. I
and
have seen that,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, we love them. It's this network of all these different places where you can come and stay for the night,
Mhm.
and they have their own little shop where they sell something, and you're
Yeah,
expected to pay something like $20 and support their little local thing, and you can stay there for free.
that's so cool.
So we love it. So we hit a couple of Harvest Hosts and we got into Florida and we hit Destin, Florida, knowing nothing about tourist attractions. Honestly, we knew
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
and realized there's a state park there. We'll just see if we can get into it. Well, we got in and we got in for a week and a half. And I'm telling you, that's
They
not common in the state of Florida in the
right,
winter.
right. It's hard. It's very hard to get in those. You have to plan way ahead usually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so difficult. So we got a
Mhm.
whole week
That's
in
so
a state
cool.
park in the Panhandle, and we just loved it. We rested our bones, we rested our hearts,
Mhm.
and then continued to travel on, and then make our way around Florida for the next bit of winter. Um,
See, you'd never been in an RV, had you? So you had to learn all
oh,
the ropes about how to work the RV and all those things, and that's a lot. It's a lot to
yeah,
learn, and you can get
yeah.
intimidated pretty fast.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
never pulling something that large.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were initially in a travel trailer that was like 34 feet long,
Mhm.
and that was a good starter, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was good. There's just a lot of learning, a lot of little bits and pieces that you don't know, and
Mhm.
thankfully we had jumped in with the support of the group of full-time families, and so there's a ton of forums, there's a ton of little branches, um, that you can be a part of and ask questions
Mm,
and figure things out. And it has become a really tight community.
that's
There's
awesome.
probably 4 to 6,000 families, I think,
Wow,
involved.
that is
And
awesome.
yeah, it's huge, but at the same time, it's become really tight. And you spend
Mhm.
time around a campfire with another full time family, and
Aw.
it's like you've spent a couple years together.
Yeah, 'cause you
Um,
know 'em through the community that you've already developed a relationship with them. That's
yeah,
so good, and then you also, if something has happened to you in your camper, it's bound to have happened to someone in that community, so you're able to like, "Oh, this happened," and they're like right away can tell you, "This is what you need to do," and even if it's a different
exactly.
type of camper, there's a lot of things that are common that can work. I
Mhm.
mean, we just got back from California, and we had to
Yeah.
travel out for work. We use ours for work, and we're in it most of the time. We're home
Mhm.
on the weekends, turn around, go back out, and coming back and forth to there, the roads are so bad. I don't know about you,
Yes.
but the banging and crashing and so my husband has spent 2 days repairing all the
Mhm.
work, all the things that broke just in the travel. It was
Yeah.
crazy. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of that too. I mean, I remember I think I saw something about water one time with you. Y'all didn't have water. There's just different
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, things like that, and people think, "Oh, it's so glorious," and yeah, there is. There's so much because I know your kids are thriving
Yeah.
in this, and,
They are.
even in the downtimes we've had and blessed not to have missed any work, we've been able to manage. I
Mhm.
have a husband that's able to fix things and probably yours too. You learn how to get it done, and,
Yeah.
so we can keep moving. But, I think people need to take the opportunity if it arises for them because,
Mhm.
like, your children have seen things that they will remember a lifetime, for a
Yes.
lifetime.
Yes.
It's teaching them.
And I think one of the biggest things that my husband and I both talk about when people ask us, how has it been for your children? One of the biggest things is just that we are living in 44 feet. We upgraded to a fifth wheel.
Yeah.
We're living in 44 feet together. That totals out when all the slides are popped out and everything. It's
Mhm,
400 square feet roughly,
mhm.
and that's small, right?
Yeah,
That's some tiny
yeah,
living for
yeah.
5 people,
It
and
is.
they it's just been such a gift because my husband is present all the time. I am present all the time.
Mhm,
And we have to learn to work around each other. We have to learn to respect each other. And
mhm,
it develops um, those kinds of relationships where you are thinking about another person. You
mm,
are able to go and find your parent when something is a problem. You are
mhm.
able to have your resources right there. And for children, I think there's a lot of stability in that,
Yes.
and we've run into actually some psychologists
Yeah.
who live on the road with their family full time,
Oh,
and
so cool.
I ended up talking with the mom who is the psychologist, and she said honestly, people question, is this developmentally appropriate for children to live in an RV being transient? We are moving around every few weeks to
Mhm,
different parks, different
mhm,
locations, um, and and she said to me, honestly, I can't think of a better situation for children
mm,
where they are with their family full time. They're
mhm,
taking in the sights and adventures that they only read about in textbooks,
mhm,
and they are able to form community with other families at the
mhm,
parks
mhm.
and be able to say, see you later, and not goodbye. Because
Yes.
then we find ways to stay in touch with those families. And
Mhm,
I think that offers a different kind of stability, but with the opportunity to problem solve, to navigate that. How, if I want to stay in touch with this family, how do I do that?
right.
Well, the internet is a great resource, but then
Yes,
you
it is.
also become very intentional with meeting up with those families again,
Mhm,
and it changes kind of the course of how you do things. And I think that kind of problem solving and the stability are very, very good for children. And that is what my friend who's the psychologist said. She said all of those kinds of resources being put together create very good environments for children to grow and
mhm.
thrive.
Mhm. And it's taking them out of the box, the norm of how, the different types of problems they're having to solve. These are great problems that you're having to
Yeah.
solve now, and I bet you've seen your kids grow closer, to each
Mm.
other. They argue, I'm sure. Kids are kids. They're gonna have their
Yeah.
moments,
Yeah.
and especially when you're in a small space, it may seem bigger
Yeah.
than what it really is. Go take a
Yeah.
walk, get outside.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
we have 5 dogs and a bird. And so I
Oh.
say it's always like I'm running a daycare in my RV. And it's
Yeah.
people, "How do you do that?" And it's like they love it. And it's like they're in their confined space. They love it. So it's I mean, I know it doesn't like children, but they are. They're our kids because we don't have children anymore. We're, empty nesters. But
Yeah.
when we did, our grandkids loved traveling in it. They couldn't wait to know where we were going next. And
Yeah.
I'd have them come spend a couple weeks on the road with us because we've been doing this. Well, we're married 26 years next week, and so it's been
Wow.
over 20 years we've been on the road
Wow.
traveling. And you do, excuse me, you do get to see a lot and
Yeah.
participate and make new friends like this, getting to make a new friend. I love it,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would never that would have never happened if we didn't pass each other on the highway. I would have never
Right.
gotten to know you, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm
It's
very
so
blessed by that.
it's very wonderful, and I think we have some friends that one of their slogan is just that it's a very intentional adventure,
I love
and
that.
that is really what it has become. Is we have to be intentional about things.
Mhm.
We have to be intentional about planning our routes ahead of time. We have to be intentional about saving funds for
Yeah.
different things and for repairs, and we have to be intentional with our relationships because it could go downhill. You're not in a big spot, and
Yeah.
um, it really could
Mm.
go downhill if we're not intentional to interact with our kids and say, hey, I see that there's a problem here. How can we solve it? And so it requires a lot of hands-on from the parents.
Mm.
Um, it requires a lot of response from the kids. They have
Mhm.
to be willing to talk things through. And we didn't come from a large house. We had 1,500 square feet, nothing
Right.
crazy,
Right.
but the kids really had their own rooms and their own spaces. And if they were upset and frustrated with each other, they could stomp off to their room
Yeah.
and slam the door and be
Yeah.
by themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't have to pursue them because they weren't in anyone else's space.
Space.
And we
Yeah.
could wait for them to come out and solve the problem on their own.
Hmm.
Well, that's not exactly healthy either. There's
No.
there's some there's some good points to that, give a kid their space, but at the same time, if you allow them to problem solve everything on their own, they don't have to figure out what is good and right and true. They can come up with
That's
their own
right.
solutions. And
Yeah.
so, if they can't really stomp off, I'm looking down the hallway,
No.
they can't really stomp off here without
No.
everybody hearing it and everybody
Yeah.
else in the neighborhood hearing it. And so it,
Yeah.
it creates a space where we have to say, hey, something went wrong, and I'm going to pursue you and talk about it with you and develop a deeper relationship with you. And in the process, our kids have had to talk with each other and come to agreements and
Mhm.
voice their frustrations. And we have noticed, even though they may not recognize it or
Yet.
say it,
Yet.
we
They will.
yet, yeah, yet they've become a lot closer. And our oldest was 11 when we went on the road, and
Oh.
he at first was against it, leaving his
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
leaving, all the things that he was starting to put roots down to.
Mm. Mm.
And so for the first probably 2 or 3 months, nope, I'm never doing this again. This is horrible. I just want to go back. And then my
Oh.
parents came down to visit with my sister and her family, and he goes, oh, well, people can come visit us? Sure, I'm all in. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was, he was 11 and now he's 13. And he told me the other day, well, when I have my own camper on the road and I'm traveling
Oh.
around, I'm going to want these things.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, my oldest granddaughter was always gonna live in a camper too, and she's still got that free spirit, and it may happen
Yeah.
one day, but, it's that's what you wanna hear from your kids. I mean,
Yeah.
excuse me. Yeah, I know it's hard because they do wanna get connections. They think in the normal what
Mhm.
we see every day happening, but they are getting connections big time,
Yeah.
being in these campgrounds and meeting people from all over, learning probably different cultures even,
Mhm.
from different places. So I high five you. I think it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing with your children. You have 3. Now what are their ages? You said 13 is your son.
13, and then we have a 10-year-old boy, and then we have a 8-year-old daughter, and
Awesome.
then 2
That's
dogs.
yeah. Oh, so you got the dogs too. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do have a full house.
We
Full
do.
house, definitely. So where are you at right now?
We are in Central Florida. We're just bopping around here. Our domicile, our home residency is Florida.
Okay.
So we had to tie up some loose ends and
Yeah,
take care of some, just stuff
normal.
down here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See some doctor's appointments, get our teeth cleaned, that kind of thing.
Oh, fun.
Um, yeah, so fun.
Yeah.
And then we'll be around Florida for the next month and a half probably, and then we start making our way back up to Minnesota to see family and friends for the summer.
Yeah.
So
When it's sto a
yeah,
little bit warmer. Yeah.
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 Apparently, right now they've got about 5 feet of snow. They say.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we just stay in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Georgia. This is our
Oh,
home
okay.
base is Georgia, and we're in Rome, Georgia, and it's 80 degrees today. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, this is crazy. It was 20 something the other day. So we never know what it's right now. It's in limbo, but
Yeah.
I'd rather have this than the 5 feet of snow.
Yeah, we're a little over it. That's for sure. We went back one Christmas, our first Christmas, and we had everything from brown grass and no snow and cold weather to -20 and a couple feet of snow in
Mhm.
like a three
Mhm.
week period. And we were like, no,
Mhm.
we're good. We're
Yeah.
really good.
See ya.
Yeah.
We're out of here. Well,
Yeah.
Erin, I just appreciate you taking the time with me today and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you on the road somewhere. I mean, we are
Yeah.
all over, so maybe our paths will cross again.
Oh, that sounds
We'll
great.
definitely stay connected um,
Yeah.
through the days to come.
Yeah.
But I'll be praying for your family as you travel.
Thank
Um,
you.
I know the road is hard. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. So, but it's worth it. Worth it
It
every
is.
minute. Worth
It
it
is.
every
And
minute.
it's worth it if I think if you have the intention to do it,
Yeah.
and if you have the desire, really, like I said, kind of bringing it full circle, the Joy Pack journey, if you
Yes.
have a desire to find the joyful pockets in
Mhm.
whatever journey you're on, it can be really, really wonderful, but also really refining. You know, we
Right.
go through those times where we just have to shed a layer of gunk that's accumulated. But
I
I
do.
think there's a book I've been reading, and it talks about the joy in each other's spaces. When you
Oh.
encounter someone else who has joy to see you or
Mhm.
has decided to find joy in their circumstances, it really forms a bond. It
Mhm.
forms a
Mhm.
relationship and a depth. And I think, you
Yeah.
know, I can look back on the hard seasons where I saw the joy, and I look back on those seasons fondly. You know, going through
Mm.
all those years of counseling and all
Mhm.
of the difficulties we faced, I don't have any regret, and I don't look
Mm-mm.
at it as this horrible season. I look at it as this
Mm.
season that held so many gifts that set me free.
Mm.
And and I think that's the same in any season. It might
Mhm.
look very different, and it might look different in relationships, but when you look for that joy and you are joyful to see another person, um, it becomes different. It
It
transforms into
does.
a
It
into a
does.
different season.
Yes, I
So
totally agree with that. Totally agree because I've been through that and I understand where you're coming from on it. So I totally agree with that. Now I'm going to hit end broadcast and just hang
yeah,
on for me. Stay with
okay,
me.
yeah.